Welcome to Stoic Philosophy for Life. This is not just a place to listen to books, it's a space to feel them with your soul. Here, we illuminate your mind with timeless lessons. Awaken your inner strength, cultivate self-minus discipline, and guide your journey of personal growth. Every word is carefully chosen to reach what you're truly seeking: peace, clarity, and lasting transformation. If this feels like the place for you, hit subscribe and walk this path with us every single day. Now, put on your headphones, take a deep breath, and begin the journey of renewing your mind and your life. 70 life lessons that will fix 93% of your problems. There are moments in life when you pause not because you want to, but because you are forced to. A breakdown. A betrayal. A burnout. And in that stillness, one thought hits you harder than anything else: I should have learned this sooner. That is the cruel kindness of wisdom. It does not always come with age. It comes with pain, with patterns, with finally being too tired of repeating what no longer serves you. Most people are not struggling because life is so complicated. They're struggling because no one ever taught them the rules that actually matter. We were taught to memorize dates, chase status, and follow instructions. But no one taught us how to suffer well, how to think clearly, how to handle rejection without losing ourselves, how to live without constantly needing validation. In this video, you will learn 70 life lessons, small, sharp, undeniable truths that, if applied, could solve 93% of your real problems. Not overnight, not with ease, but with clarity, with direction, with a kind of self-minus trust that cannot be shaken. Let us begin. Lesson 1: master your response, or be mastered by the world. People will provoke you. Life will test you. But your peace is not found in controlling them, it is found in choosing your reaction. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Someone insults you. Someone ignores you. The question is never, why did they do that? Epictetus taught, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Your freedom begins the moment you stop reacting out of habit and start responding with intention. Lesson to stop expecting closure. Choose clarity instead. Most of your suffering comes from waiting for someone else to explain why they hurt you, why they ghosted, why they changed. But here is the hard truth: closure is often a luxury. You may never get it, but that does not mean you cannot move on. Closure is not something they give you. It is something you choose when you decide their silence is enough of an answer. Lesson 3: discipline is your truest self-minus love. You think it is harsh to set boundaries with yourself. You think it is punishment to say no to instant gratification. No, discipline is compassion. Because it says, I care too much about my future to let the comfort at the moment win. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. And when you train yourself to show up, even when it is boring, painful, or hard, that is when transformation begins. Lesson for you: do not need more time. You need more focus. The problem is not your schedule. It is your attention. You scroll for hours, then say you are overwhelmed. You have minus start 10 things, incomplete none. You chase urgency and avoid importance. But time is not running out, you are just leaking it. Choose 3 things a day. Do them with full attention. Watch your life change. Lesson 5: stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You are not a courtroom. You are not required to present evidence of your growth, your intentions, or your peace. Some people do not want to understand you. They want to feel right about their version of you. Let them. Let them be wrong. Walk anyway. Feel anyway. Speak anyway. You do not owe closure to those who only want control. Lesson 6: most problems are not urgent, they are just loud. Your mind screams about emails, texts, expectations. But pause. Breathe. Ask what actually matters right now. The noise wants your attention. But your peace requires your prioritizations. If everything is important, nothing is. Learn to tell the difference. If this message grounded you, share it with someone who needs it. Lesson 7: your feelings are valid, but they are not facts. You feel left out, unseen, rejected. That pain is real. But that does not mean the story your mind is telling is true. Not being invited does not mean you are unworthy. I delay does not mean you are forgotten. Learn to hold space for your emotions without letting them dictate your reality. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Emotions rise, but they do not have to rule. Lesson 8: every time you avoid discomfort, you reinforce fear. You put off the conversation. You delay the action. You stay quiet when you should speak. And in doing so, you teach your nervous system that fear is in charge. But confidence is not built in comfort, it is built in courage. The more you lean in, the more you train yourself to handle life, not avoid it. Lesson 9: you cannot hate yourself into becoming someone you love. Self minus shame is not self minus discipline. Beating yourself up is not transformation, it is self minus abuse. The voice you use when you talk to yourself. Is it helping or harming? You grow best when your inner world is safe, not hostile. Speak with the same patience you would offer someone you love. Lesson 10: not everything that hurts is harmful. Growth hurts. Silence hurts. Rejection hurts. But that pain is not punishment, it is information. It tells you what to change, what to let go of, what to protect. Learn to listen to your pain, not worship it. Feel it. Use it. Then release it. Life has a way of whispering the truth before it shouts it. And most people ignore the whispers until they are overwhelmed by the roar. That headache that keeps returning. That draining friendship you keep justifying. That dream you keep postponing. These are not accidents. They are signals. Life is always speaking. The question is, are you listening? So let us continue. Let these lessons not just be truths you hear, but mirrors you hold. Let them become quiet reminders, gentle recalibrations, daily anchors in a world that constantly pulls you in every direction but inward. Lesson 11: you will never outgrow the need to start over. People assume starting over is a sign of failure. But often, it is a sign of growth. You outgrow careers, friendships, versions of yourself that once made perfect sense. To shed your skin is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is honoring that you are evolving. If the path no longer fits, stop forcing it. Begin again. As many times as necessary. Seneca wrote, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Let the endings come. Trust the cycle. Trust the new. Lesson 12: learn to rest, not quit. Fatigue is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign you are human. The mind needs rest. The body needs pause. The soul needs silence. You think you need more motivation. No, you need more recovery. Stop interpreting tiredness as weakness. You cannot create from depletion. You need space to return to yourself. Lesson 13: if they wanted to, they would. This one stings. But clarity is more loving than denial. People show you who they are not just through what they say, but through what they consistently choose. Effort is not complicated. When someone wants to call, they find a minute. When they care, they remember. When it matters, they show up. Stop making excuses for patterns that are crystal clear. Stop watering dead plants. Lesson 14. Unexpressed resentment always turns inward. You tell yourself it is not worth it, so you stay quiet. You let it slide. You pretend you are fine. But each time you suppress the truth, you swallow a little bitterness. And that bitterness becomes distance. It becomes exhaustion. It becomes self minus blame. Speak up, not to fight, but to free. Your needs are not too much. Your feelings are not too sensitive. Your boundaries are not rude. You are allowed to say, "This does not work for me." Say it early. Say it calmly. Say it clearly. Lesson 15. You attract what you tolerate. Your standards are not just about what you want, they are about what you allow. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you teach the world how to treat you. And more importantly, you teach yourself what you think you are worth. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. You choose who enters. You choose what energy stays. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." That is not about silence, it is about sovereignty. Elevate your standard. Start with yourself. Lesson 16. Do not confuse potential with compatibility. Just because someone is impressive does not mean they are good for you. Just because you see who they could become does not mean you are meant to help them get there. Relationships are not rescue missions. You cannot love someone into healing. You cannot coach someone into growing. You can only meet people where they actually are, not where you wish they would be. Lesson 17. Most people are not thinking about you. You think they noticed your mistake. Your awkward pause. Your anxious energy. But they are too busy with their own insecurities to focus on yours. You are the main character in your mind, but only there. Free yourself from the prison of hyper-minded awareness. Live. Mess up. Be human. Everyone else is too. Lesson 18. Healing is not becoming the old you. It is becoming the new you. You will never go back to who you were before the betrayal, before the breakdown, before the heartbreak. And you should not want to. That version of you did not know what you now know. Healing is not rewinding. It is rewriting. It is saying, that version of me broke, but from those cracks came someone wiser. Lesson 19. Everything is a choice, even what you do not choose. Indecision is a decision. Silence is a response. Tolerating something is participation. You are choosing, whether consciously or not. So choose well. Choose from awareness, not autopilot. From values, not fear. Lesson 20. Energy is data. When you leave a room feeling drained, notice it. When you talk to someone and suddenly feel heavy, pay attention. Not everything is explainable, but your nervous system is speaking before your mind catches up. Trust how your body feels, even if your brain is still rationalizing. If this is resonating, subscribe for more truths that shift your perspective. Lesson 20-1. If it costs your peace, it is too expensive. That job, that friend, that habit, it may look good on the surface. But if it is draining your joy, your energy, your sleep, your clarity, it is not worth it. If you're here right now, it means you're not waiting for life to happen. You're preparing for it. 2025 won't just be another year. It could be your breakthrough year, if you stay open to growth and committed to the work. Let this be your reminder you're not behind. You're just getting ready. Peace is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Build your life around it. Defend it. Choose it. Listen when he minus to confidence is a skill, not a trait. You are not born with it. You build it. Through small wins. Through broken voice moments. Through doing things before you feel ready. Confidence is built by showing yourself that you can trust you. That you will not abandon yourself again. Epictetus thought, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? Confidence comes not from pretending to be fearless but from choosing action even while afraid. Lesson 20-3 You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. You say you want change, but do your daily habits reflect that? You want clarity, but do you create silence? You want strength, but do you train your discipline? Motivation gets you started. Systems keep you going. Stack your life around the version of yourself you are becoming, not the one you are trying to escape. Listen when he minus for not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear the path. That breakup. That job loss. That moment you felt everything falling apart. Maybe it was not destruction. Maybe it was redirection. Trust that sometimes, what feels like an ending is actually a beginning in disguise. Growth rarely comes wrapped in comfort. Lesson 20-5 Gratitude is not a feeling. It is a practice. You wait to feel grateful, but that is not how it works. You choose to notice. You choose to slow down. You choose to say thank you to life, to others, to yourself. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it expands your capacity to hold both joy and sorrow at once. That is emotional maturity. And that, ultimately, is what these lessons are about: not avoiding pain, but expanding your capacity. To hold peace in pressure. To find beauty in mess. To live fully, not perfectly. There is a kind of wisdom that only reveals itself when you stop running from pain, from the truth, from your own reflection. Most people live as fugitives from themselves, disguising avoidance as productivity and denial as optimism. But the moment you slow down, even just for a breath, you realize the problem is not always out there. It is within. And that is not condemnation, it is liberation. Because what is internal, you can change. These next lessons are not about information. They are about alignment. About remembering who you were before the noise. Before the fear. Before the world told you to be someone else. Let us continue. Lesson 20-6 The way you do one thing is the way you do most things. You think it is just being late, just skipping the small task, just letting the conversation slide. But patterns are contagious. They spread from the insignificant to the essential. And over time, the way you brush your teeth, pack your bag, send that email, all of it shapes your character. Excellence is not about big moments. It is about consistent intention in small ones. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you must build up your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. That is the foundation. Not perfection, but deliberate care even in the unseen. Lesson 20-7 Comfort is seductive, but growth is sacred. You will be tempted to choose what is easy. You will be rewarded for playing it safe. But your soul was not built for comfort alone. It was built to stretch, to rise, to reach. And that requires friction. If it does not challenge you, it will not change you. Your next level of life will always require a deeper level of discomfort. Seneca warned, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And what greater waste than a life lived in fear of friction? Lesson 20-8. You are allowed to outgrow people. Not everyone is meant to walk your whole path with you. Some were only meant for a chapter. And clinging to outdated relationships out of guilt, out of nostalgia, out of fear of being alone can cost you your clarity. You are not betraying anyone by growing. You only betray yourself when you shrink. Let people go with love, not resentment. And let yourself move forward, even if no one claps for it. Lesson 20-9. Your environment is either designing your future or destroying it. Look around. What you see here, absorb it, shapes your thoughts, your beliefs, your default decisions. If you want to change your life, you do not just need better goals. You need better inputs. Clean your space. Curate your feed. Protect your time. What surrounds you will soon live inside you. Lesson 30. There is no breakthrough without breaking down. Before the clarity comes the confusion. Before the alignment comes the discomfort. You cannot bypass the mess. You must go through it. That is where the real wisdom is, not in the escape, but in the staying. In the sitting with it. In the question, what is this trying to teach me? Do not rush to fix it. Let it reveal you first. Often, what breaks is not your life, but the illusion that was keeping you small. Lesson 30-1. The opinion that matters most is the one you will have on your deathbed. When all the noise fades, when you are old, fragile, reflecting, you will not care who unfollowed you, who disagreed, who misunderstood you. You will care whether you lived in integrity, whether you said what needed to be said, whether you showed up for what mattered, whether you honored your inner voice. Live now as that version of you would advise. He or she is wiser than you know. Lesson 30- to protect your mornings. They shape your mindset. The first 20 minutes of your day are sacred. They calibrate your nervous system. If you start with chaos, you chase it all day. If you start with intention, you carry that peace into everything else. Begin with silence, stillness, a stretch, a breath, a word of truth. Do not trade your focus for dopamine. Lesson 30-3. You are not lazy. You are just disconnected. Most procrastination is not a time problem, it is a meaning problem. You are not aligned. You are not emotionally invested. You are not clear on why it matters. So you delay. You distract. You spiral. To move forward, do not just demand more effort. Reconnect to your purpose. Ask yourself, what would this action say about who I am becoming? When the action reflects identity, energy follows. Lesson 30- for the smallest daily habits often have the biggest long-term impact. 5 deep breaths. 2 glasses of water. I walk after lunch. Turning your phone off an hour before bed. These may seem small, but they compound. They shift your nervous system, your discipline, your energy. The point is not grand change overnight. It is micro-alignment repeated until it becomes your default state. Lesson 30-5. Stop negotiating with yourself. You say, just 5 more minutes, just this once, I will start tomorrow, and every time you negotiate, you reinforce that your word is flexible. That comfort wins. That your future self is not worth the inconvenience. You will feel resistance. That is not a sign to stop. That is a sign to begin. The longer you hesitate, the louder the excuse becomes. Move now, before the mind convinces you again to delay the life you are meant to live. If this resonates, send it to someone who is rebuilding. Lesson 30-6. People do not abandon you because you are unworthy. They leave because they cannot meet you where you are. That is not your fault. But it is your responsibility to not let their leaving define your value. You are not too much. You are just not meant to shrink anymore. Grieve. Forgive. But never forget that your worth was never up for negotiation. Lesson 30-7 You cannot shame yourself into growth. You can pressure yourself. Criticize yourself. Push yourself with guilt. But it will not last. Because pressure without compassion eventually collapses. True growth comes from partnership with yourself, not punishment. Learn to motivate from care, not cruelty. Lesson 30-8 Your body listens to everything your mind says. Every I am so stupid. Every I look terrible. Every anxious story about what might go wrong. These thoughts are not harmless. Your body reacts. It tightens. It prepares for war. And then you wonder why you feel so heavy. Speak gently. Your body is not your enemy. It is your partner. Treat it with the reverence it deserves. Lesson 30-9 Not all tired is physical. Some of it is soul fatigue. You can sleep 8 hours and still feel exhausted. Because you are out of alignment. Because you are pretending too much. Performing too often. Carrying too many things that were never yours. The cure is not always rest. Sometimes it is release. Let go. Even if you have to do it silently. Lesson 40 Let your values, not your moods, determine your behavior. Moods fluctuate. Values ground. If you live by how you feel, you will be inconsistent. But if you live by what you believe, you will build trust with yourself. And trust is the cornerstone of self-respect. Ask yourself every morning, what would my highest self do today? Then act accordingly, even if you do not feel like it yet. Most people are not lost because they lack direction. They are lost because they have abandoned their own compass. They know what matters. But they compromise it slowly, silently, one small excuse at a time. And after enough of those excuses, they forget what their truth even sounded like. So these lessons are not just rules. They are reminders. They are not about impressing others. They are about coming home to yourself. Let us continue. Lesson 40-1 A bad moment does not mean a bad life. You had a rough morning. You missed a deadline. You said the wrong thing. That does not mean the entire day is ruined. Stop letting one experience write the story of your whole identity. Learn to pause. Reset. Continue. Life is not made of perfect days. It is made of resilient recoveries. Epictetus reminded us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your power is not in avoiding error, it is in responding wisely when it arrives. Lesson 40-2 People often treat you based on how they feel about themselves. Their rudeness is not always about you. Their distance, their criticism, their defensiveness, it is a mirror of their internal storm. This does not excuse harm. But it explains why personalizing everything is a path to madness. Marcus Aurelius said, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? Compassion and boundaries must walk hand in hand. Lesson 40-3 Perfectionism is just fear in disguise. You say you want it to be just right, but really you are afraid of judgment, of failing, of not being good enough. Perfectionism is not high standards, it is a protective mechanism. How many years have passed where you promised yourself change, but drifted back into comfort? This time, it's different because you're still here. You're listening, you're learning, And most importantly, you're not quitting. And that's what separates wishful thinking from real transformation. And it often leads to paralysis. Done is better than perfect. Progress over polish. The courage to begin creates far more impact than the fear that stops you from trying. Lesson 40- for clarity comes from action, not overthinking. You will not figure it all out by sitting in your head. You must move. Test. Try. Reflect. Every step gives you feedback. Every stumble gives you data. Waiting for certainty is a trap. You do not think your way into confidence, you act your way into it. Seneca said, if one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable. Action reveals the map. Thought alone will not. Lesson 40-5 Your triggers are your teachers. That surge of anger, that defensiveness, that irritation that seems irrational. Those are clues. They point to something unresolved. Some belief. Some wound. Some story you are still carrying. Do not dismiss them. Get curious. Ask, why did this hurt me more than it should? Healing begins when you stop blaming and start investigating. Lesson 40-6 The fastest way to build self-respect is to keep the promises you make to yourself. Wake when you said you would. Move your body when you promised. Say no when your boundary is crossed. These small acts are not trivial, they are trust. Every time you follow through, you signal to yourself, I am safe with me. Confidence is self-trust expressed in behavior. Lesson 40-7 If you are always the strong one, eventually you will become the invisible one. People will lean on you, depend on you, praise your resilience. And slowly you will begin to wonder, does anyone see me? Strength is beautiful, but it is not sustainable without support. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to be held. You are allowed to not always have the answers. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is how we breathe inside the armor. Lesson 40-8 Time reveals character. Not effort. Not charm. Not promises. Time. Watch who is consistent. Who follows through. Who shows up when it is inconvenient. People can fake almost anything, but not time. It always exposes what is real. Let people show you who they are. You do not need to fix. You need to observe. As Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Lesson 40-9 Some people only love the version of you that does not ask for much. The version that accommodates. That agrees. That stays quiet to keep the peace. The moment you have needs, opinions, or boundaries, they pull away. That is not love. That is convenience. And you deserve more than that. Do not confuse tolerance with connection. If your truth threatens the relationship, it was never real to begin with. Lesson 50 You can be both healing and still have moments of hurt. Growth does not erase pain. It changes how you carry it. Some days the weight feels lighter. Some days it returns. That does not mean you are broken again. It means you are human. Healing is not a straight line. It is a spiral. You revisit old wounds, but from a higher place each time. Lesson 50-1 Avoidance creates suffering. You put off the talk. You ignore the signs. You distract instead of decide. And the longer you avoid, the bigger it grows. Pain demands to be felt. And what you resist persists. Have the conversation. Make the choice. Feel the thing. It is hard, but it is healing. Lesson 50 minus to you are not a burden for having needs. Wanting support does not make you weak. Wanting affection does not make you needy. Wanting respect does not make you difficult. Your needs are human. You were not built to do life alone. Say what you need without apology. And if they cannot meet you there, they are not your people. Lesson 50 minus 3 let go of the fantasy version of others. You keep hoping they will change. That they will finally see. That they will apologize. But you are not in love with who they are, you are in love with their potential. Their possibility. Their highlights. Let them be who they are. And decide if that is enough. You cannot grow while clinging to illusion. If this message grounded you, share it with someone who needs it. Lesson 50 minus for emotional maturity is responding, not reacting. You take a breath. You pause. You speak with intention, not impulse. That does not mean you suppress your emotions, it means you steward them. You do not let anger die. You do not let fear dictate. You let truth speak through discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, and the best growth is to become who your past self needed." Lesson 50 minus 5 you deserve a life you do not have to escape from. Not just a vacation. Not just a weekend. But daily peace. Daily presence. That does not mean perfect. It means honest. Grounded. True. Build slowly. Create rituals. Say no more often. Say yes to what lights you up. Build a life that feels like home, not a performance. Lesson 50 minus 6 who you become is more important than what you achieve. Goals are important. Progress is beautiful. But the real measure of success is who you are while getting there. Are you kind? Are you honest? Are you aligned? Character is the invisible wealth. It outlives applause. Lesson 50 minus 7 you do not need closure to heal. They may never explain. Never admit. Never apologize. But your healing does not depend on their awareness. It depends on your decision. To feel. To grieve. To release. Closure is not given. It is chosen. Lesson 50 minus 8 your future is shaped most by what you do when no one is watching. The quiet choices. The inner battles. The moments of integrity. These are your foundation. They determine whether your success is sustainable or built on sand. Choose alignment. Even in silence. There comes a time when self-minus awareness is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. Because if you do not understand your own patterns, your own pain, your own responses, then someone else will. And they will use that knowledge not to love you, but to control you. This is where we begin the intersection between emotion and identity. Between who you think you are and what you keep avoiding. Because growth is not just adding new things to your life. It is subtracting what no longer serves you. It is looking your patterns in the eye and saying, no more. Lesson 50 minus 9 you must feel it to free it. Suppressing emotion does not dissolve it, it stores it. In your muscles. In your sleep. In your tone of voice. Unfelt grief becomes chronic tension. Unspoken resentment becomes sarcasm. Unhealed betrayal becomes trust issues. You do not heal by intellectualizing your pain. You heal by grieving it. By letting it move through your body, not just your brain. It will not be pretty. But it will be real. And real is where the freedom is. Lesson 60 honesty without compassion is cruelty. Telling someone the truth is powerful. But the way you say it, the timing, the tone, the intention matters. Do not weaponize honesty. Use it as a tool for clarity, not a sword for control. Speak the truth not to tear someone down but to lift the weight of silence. Marcus Aurelius lived by this principle: truth and kindness are not opposites. In fact, they are partners. Lesson 60-1 You are not responsible for others' emotions, but you are responsible for your impact. Someone may be triggered by your boundary. That does not mean you are wrong. But it does mean you can choose how you communicate. You can speak with firmness and grace. You can disagree without dehumanizing. You can assert without attacking. Being conscious of your impact is not people-pleasing. It is integrity. Lesson 60-2 Your nervous system remembers what your mind forgets. That sudden anxiety when someone raises their voice. That emotional numbness when you feel overwhelmed. Those are not flaws. They are defense mechanisms your body created to survive. But what protected you then may now be limiting you. Healing is not about judgment. It is about safety. Train your nervous system gently. Learn to breathe again. Learn to rest without guilt. Learn that not every raised voice means danger. Lesson 60-3 You will sabotage what you do not believe you deserve. The relationship. The opportunity. The peace. If your subconscious story says, I am not worthy, you will unconsciously push it away. You will create chaos where there was calm. Distance where there was intimacy. This is why mindset work matters. Not for motivation but for capacity. You cannot hold what you keep running from. Lesson 60- for resentment is self-abandonment with a time delay. You say yes when you mean no. You stay silent when your truth burns. You give more than you have. And then you resent. Not just them, but yourself. Honor your limits early, or you will explode later. It is not selfish to set boundaries. It is sacred. Lesson 60-5 Not every thought deserves a response. Your mind will generate thousands of thoughts a day. Many are noise. Some are lies. Just because a thought enters does not mean you must entertain it. Watch it. Thank it. Let it pass. Epictetus taught if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Detachment is not disconnection. It is discernment. Lesson 60-6 Some people are addicted to drama because peace feels foreign. They grew up in chaos. They learned love through volatility. So when you offer calm, they mistrust it. That is not a reflection of you. That is a reflection of what they have normalized. Do not chase someone whose nervous system is not ready for what you offer. Love them from a distance. But do not make your life a battleground just to feel close. Lesson 60-7 You cannot heal in the same place that keeps wounding you. Maybe it is a relationship. Maybe it is a job. Maybe it is a version of yourself. But if you keep returning to the same source of pain expecting relief, you are not healing. You are traumatizing. Courage means walking away even when you do not feel ready. Especially then. Lesson 60-8 What you tolerate, you teach. You say nothing when they cancel last minute. You let the comment slide. You laugh at the joke that hurt you. And in doing so, you send a message this is acceptable. You do not need to yell. You do not need to punish. You only need to name the line and keep it firm. If this part resonated with you, take a moment to pause and reflect. The lesson is not just in hearing, it is in practicing. Lesson 60-9. The goal is not to be liked. It is to be understood by yourself. You can spend your whole life molding, bending, adapting to be palatable. But approval is addictive, and it has no end. The real victory is looking in the mirror and saying, "This is who I am, and I do not need to shrink anymore." You will lose people, but you will gain something more important: yourself. Lesson 70. Joy is a discipline. People wait for the perfect moment to feel joy. For the vacation, the raise, the wedding. But life is not made of mountaintops. It is made of mornings, tours, traffic, rainy Tuesdays. Train yourself to find beauty there, to smile without a reason, to play, to laugh even while life is unfinished. That is not delusion. That is mastery. There is a version of you in 2025 that looks back at this moment and smiles. Because this is when it started, when you chose discipline over distraction, purpose over pressure. Keep listening. You are not just passing time, you are reshaping your future with every word. And maybe, just maybe, that is the final lesson. Your life does not need to be perfect to be profound. You do not need to be whole to be worthy. You just need to be here. Awake. Alive. Willing. That alone will fix more than you know. So you have heard them 70 life lessons. Each one sharp, specific, demanding. They are not inspirational quotes. They are mirrors. And mirrors are not always comfortable. They show you what you forgot, what you avoid, and what you have not yet outgrown. But here is the truth: hearing the lessons is not the same as living them. Because most people do not suffer from ignorance. They suffer from disconnection. They already know what to do. But knowing and embodying are two very different things. This is where we go deeper, not into more lessons, but into the space between knowing and becoming. Into the work of integration. Because if you cannot live your truth in the middle of chaos, then you do not own it yet. If you cannot speak up while your voice shakes, you have not yet claimed your boundary. If you forget the lesson the moment things get hard, then you are still a student of convenience, not a disciple of discipline. So here is where the work begins, not with more words, but with slower steps. With asking, which of these 70 truths do I resist most? Start there. Because resistance is a map. It shows you where the healing hides. Maybe the lesson that challenged you most was this: you attract what you tolerate. You heard it, and your stomach tightened. Because deep down, you know what you have been tolerating. The friend who crosses your boundaries. The voice in your head that tears you down. The habit that numbs your real hunger. To integrate this truth is to stop blaming others. It is to stop waiting for them to change. It is to ask, what energy am I choosing day after day? Or maybe the hardest truth was this: you cannot hate yourself into becoming someone you love. That one often lands like a punch to the gut. Because so many people mistake shame for self-awareness. They think beating themselves up is noble. That harshness is discipline. But all that self-minus judgment does is reinforce the lie: I must be fixed before I am worthy. Living this truth means changing your tone. It means catching the moment when your inner critic rises and replacing it with the voice of a friend. It means walking through the world with the quiet power of someone who knows they are imperfect and still enough. Some of you were pierced most by this: you will sabotage what you do not believe you deserve. Maybe that is why your relationships keep crumbling once they feel good. Why you start strong, but somehow always drop the ball. It is not because you are lazy. It is because your subconscious has not caught up with your new reality. Part of you still thinks, this peace is temporary, so you create the storm just to feel familiar again. To live that truth is to rewire identity. To sit with joy and say, I will not run from this, to feel peace and not chase chaos. To believe, again and again, that you are safe to receive good things. Not because you earn them perfectly, but because you are finally open. What about the lesson resentment is self minus abandonment with a time delay? That one cuts deep. Because how many times have you said yes while your chest screamed no? How many times have you swallowed the truth, thinking you were keeping the peace, only to later feel anger you could not place? This is the anatomy of people minus. Pleasing you trade momentary discomfort for long minus term disconnection. You smile while betraying your soul. And then you resent them, but mostly you resent yourself. To integrate this means speaking sooner, speaking softer, speaking honestly, even if it shakes the dynamic, even if it disappoints someone. Because your silence is not kindness, it is self minus erasure. Then there is this: healing is not becoming the old you. It is becoming the new you. How many of us long for the version of ourselves before it all went wrong? The person we were before the heartbreak, before the trauma, before the fall. But that person is gone. And they should be. Because they did not know what you now know. The goal is not to rewind, it is to rebuild. From the rubble. From the clarity. From the resilience that only pain could teach. Healing, then, is not a return, it is an evolution. And perhaps one of the simplest yet most profound truths was this: feel it to free it, because that is the root of so much suffering, unprocessed pain. You think you are avoiding the feeling. But what you are really doing is carrying it into your next relationship, your next argument, your next choice. And it leaks. In your tone. Your posture. Your pauses. To live this lesson is to sit. Not scroll. Not numb. Not analyze. But sit with the ache. With the tears. With the memory. Not to drown in it, but to let it rise, crest, and pass. Just like every wave eventually does. Marcus Aurelius taught himself to write his thoughts at night, not because he needed content, but because he needed clarity. That is what these lessons become when you sit with them daily, not information, but formation. They do not make you smarter. They make you braver. Calmer. Clearer. So now the question is not, do I understand the 70 truths? Consistently. Quietly. Without needing applause. That is how everything changes. Slowly. Stubbornly. Sincerely. Because here is what they do not tell you: the biggest breakthroughs come from the smallest shifts. From waking up and making your bed. From choosing the walk instead of the worry. From taking the breath before you reply. From saying no without apology. From telling the truth even when your voice shakes. Those are the moments that matter. That stack. That compound. Until one day, you look up and realize your life is not perfect, but it is yours. And that alone fixes more than you ever imagined. You do not rise to the level of your potential. You fall to the level of your patterns. It is not enough to know what is true. You must practice it when you are tired, when no one is watching, when it would be easier to default to your old self. This is the part most people avoid. They read the book. They highlight the quote. But they never build the structure to live it. So let us be clear: wisdom without action is noise. It sounds good. It feels insightful. But it changes nothing. And what you do not apply, you eventually forget. That is why this next chapter is not about discovering new truths. It is about deciding how to build your life around the ones you already know. The first step is this: design your day around your values, not your moods. Moods are unpredictable. They are weather. But values, if you write them, name them, and live from them, create stability. Ask yourself each morning, what does alignment look like today? That is not a vague question. It is practical. If you value peace, maybe alignment looks like protecting the first hour of your day from screens. If you value connection, maybe it looks like calling someone instead of texting. If you value truth, maybe it means saying what you mean, even if it is uncomfortable. This is how integrity is built, not in grand gestures, but in daily micro-minus decisions that quietly echo your core. The second step: create systems that support the person you want to become. Wanting to be consistent is not the same as building consistency. You need a structure, a rhythm. Discipline does not mean rigidity. It means devotion. You brush your teeth not because you feel like it, but because it is part of your identity. I am someone who takes care of my body. In the same way, your system should reflect your internal clarity. You journal because you are someone who wants to understand themselves. You stretch because you respect the vessel that carries your mind. You read because you know mental strength is earned, not inherited. Build rituals, not just resolutions. The third step: audit your inputs. Your peace is only as strong as your information diet. What you consume shapes how you feel, how you think, how you speak. The music, the social media, the conversations. They are not neutral. They are shaping you. You cannot think clearly if you are constantly absorbing fear, noise, outrage, or comparison. Clean up your inputs. Correct your feed. Choose content that reminds you who you are, not who you should be afraid of becoming. Seneca would say, associate with people who are likely to improve you. That includes digital voices. Follow people who raise your standard of thought, not just your dopamine. The fourth step: design your relationships with the same clarity. Most people drift into relationships. Friendships of convenience. Partnerships of chemistry. But never asking, is this connection aligned with my values? Do I feel more like myself when I am around them or less? Connection is not enough. You need resonance. You need people who challenge your excuses, who see your shadow but do not flinch, who remind you of your highest self, even when you forget. That is what Seneca meant by improving associations. Let this be your new standard. I will no longer bond over dysfunction. I will only build where growth is welcome. Fifth step: manage your emotional energy like a currency. You track your money. You plan your calendar. But what about your emotional bandwidth? You give it away to guilt, to people pleasing, to worry and wonder why you feel bankrupt by noon. Start asking, what is this costing me emotionally? That argument, that overcommitment, that grudge. Emotional debt accumulates faster than you realize. And the only way to recover is to be ruthless with your boundaries, generous with your rest, and discerning with your yes. Protect your inner economy. Sixth step: build silence into your life on purpose. Stillness is not a reward. It is a requirement. Without it, you live reactively. Without it, you lose yourself in the noise. You need a space where your mind is not being hijacked, where your soul can recalibrate. Even 10 minutes of silence a day is medicine. No music. No scrolling. Just you and your breath. That space becomes sacred. It teaches you how to sit with discomfort. It reveals what is beneath the distraction. It restores your nervous system. It reminds you that peace is not found, it is built. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Build that retreat. Visit it often. 7th step: treat your triggers as invitations. Triggers are not always a sign of trauma. Sometimes they are simply reminders of where your healing still lives, where your edges are still sharp, where your wounds still whisper. When something agitates you, pause. Ask, what is this revealing about me? Maybe it is not just their tone, it is the way it mirrors how you speak to yourself. Maybe it is not just about them being late, it is your unresolved belief that people always leave. Integration happens when you stop blaming and start listening. 8th step: move your body like your life depends on it, because it does. You do not need to become an athlete, but you do need to move. Every day. Stretch. Walk. Breathe deeply. Emotions live in the body. Unprocessed tension settles into muscles. Movement is how you release it, how you return to your center. Discipline here is not about aesthetics. It is about clarity. It is about agency. It is about waking up and saying, this body is not just a tool, it is home. Take care of it accordingly. 9th step: make reflection a weekly ritual. Once a week, ask, where did I live aligned this week? Where did I abandon myself? What lesson am I being asked to learn again? Do not rush to fix. Just notice. Awareness precedes change. Over time, this ritual becomes a mirror. It keeps you honest. It protects you from drifting. And it reminds you that becoming is not about perfection, it is about remembering. And finally, the 10th step: choose consistency over intensity. You do not need to overhaul your life overnight. You do not need to feel like it every day. You need to keep showing up. Especially when it is boring. Especially when it is inconvenient. Especially when no one claps. The path is not glamorous, but it is sacred. Because while the world is distracted, you are building something unshakable. So pause now. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what one truth will I live today? Not all 70. Just one. Fully. Honestly. Quietly. And let that one truth be the seed that grows your new life, not through force, but through faithful repetition. At a certain point, growth stops being about fixing your problems and starts being about meeting yourself. Not the version you perform. Not the one you curate for others. But the quiet, complicated, deeply human soul underneath all the noise. And here is the truth most people avoid: your life is not asking you to become perfect. It is asking you to become honest. Honest about what you want. Honest about what you fear. Honest about what you are tired of pretending. This is the beginning of true freedom. Not the kind you post online, but the kind you feel in your chest when you finally say, this is who I am done apologizing for it. Let us go further. You have likely spent years trying to improve yourself. Goals, habits, systems, and all of that matters. But at the core, none of it will work if it is built on self-rejection. You cannot heal a body you hate. You cannot calm a mind you attack. You cannot grow a life you secretly believe you do not deserve. So let this be your new foundation, not shame, but self-partnership. You are not here to bully yourself into progress. You are here to become an ally to your own evolution. That means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. It means allowing rest without guilt. It means choosing slowness when your old patterns scream for speed. Because you are not racing anymore. You are arriving. And where are you arriving? Into your own presence. Into the parts of you used to run from. Into the stillness where your soul is no longer edited for external comfort. That is the real work. And it cannot be rushed. Marcus Aurelius asked himself each morning, what am I complaining about today that will not matter tomorrow? If you found this video valuable and meaningful, please consider sharing it. You never know, it might help someone who truly needs it. So let us bring that here. Ask yourself now, what am I doing today that aligns with who I say I want to be? Where am I still living on autopilot? Where am I still choosing survival over sincerity? These are not easy questions, but they are sacred. Because this is where transformation truly begins, not in doing more, but in becoming less divided, less fragmented, less split between who you are and who you pretend to be. So let us talk about the cost of pretending. Pretending drains your spirit. It makes you tired in ways sleep cannot fix. It makes you feel alone even in a crowded room. Because no one can truly love the version of you that is not real. No one can meet you fully if you never let yourself be fully seen. This is why authenticity is not optional. It is essential. Not for likes, not for branding, but for sanity. To walk through the world with your truth intact is one of the rarest, most rebellious things you can do. And yes, it will come with consequences. People will misunderstand you, leave you, question you. Let them. Their discomfort is not your problem. Your alignment is your responsibility. Epictetus taught, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. The modern world reverses this. It tells you to adorn first your image, your achievements, your opinions, and maybe you will feel like someone. But no. You start from the inside. You start with clarity. You start with enoughness. And from there you build. You dress. You speak. You choose. But all from a place of wholeness, not hunger. So how do you return to this place, this wholeness, when the world keeps pulling you away? You begin by creating honest space. Not just a physical room, but emotional space, mental space, soul space. You remove what numbs. Use it with what is real. You let silence say what noise has been covering up for years. You do not need a 10-day retreat. You need 10 minutes of unfiltered presence each day. Not to fix anything, but to feel what is true. And in that truth, something amazing happens. You begin to trust yourself again. Because truth, even when it hurts, is far more restful than illusion. So stop waiting for others to tell you who you are. Stop asking people to validate your path. Stop outsourcing your intuition. You know, you always have. You just got too busy, too loud, too afraid to listen. But you can listen now. No one is stopping you but you. And the minute you stop arguing with reality, the minute you stop asking life to be easier and start asking yourself to be stronger, you return to power. And here is a secret most people miss: strength is not force. It is not control. It is not dominating your emotions. True strength is gentle. It is choosing grace when anger feels justified. It is holding space instead of judgment. It is telling yourself, I can sit with this, even when your old self wants to run. That is what Stoicism was always about, not detachment, but groundedness. Not being cold, but being clear. You can be fierce and soft. You can be disciplined and compassionate. You can be tender and unshakable. Those are not contradictions. They are the full spectrum of a soul no longer afraid to feel. And this wholeness is what fixes the real problems. Not the surface struggles. Not the temporary pain. But the core fracture, the part of you that forgot you were allowed to be complete, even while still becoming. So take a breath. Feel the weight of that. And then ask one question that changes everything. If I lived today as if I fully trusted myself, what would that look like? Answer that. Then go live it. Not for the world. Not for applause. But because your soul is tired of waiting. There is a kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with other people. A kind of emptiness that lingers even when you are surrounded. That is the loneliness of being disconnected from yourself. Of living in constant reaction to the world, but never pausing long enough to ask, what do I really think? What do I really want? Who am I when I am not performing? Most people do not abandon themselves all at once. They do it slowly. They ignore their gut. They silence their needs. They tolerate one small disrespect, then another. They compromise until what remains is just a version A shell built to survive, not to live. So let us begin again. Not by reinventing, but by remembering. Remembering who you were before the world told you who you had to be. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But what happens when those thoughts are not yours? When your inner voice sounds more like your parents, or society, or that teacher who made you feel small. It is time to repaint the soul with your own truth. And that begins with one quiet decision: I will stop treating myself like an enemy. You would never speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself. You would never call them lazy, unlovable, behind, broken. But somehow you think saying those things to yourself will create change. It does not. All it creates is tension, fear, paralysis. And that paralysis becomes your life. So what if your inner dialogue became your sanctuary, not your battleground? Imagine waking up and hearing, you do not need to earn rest today. You are already enough. Imagine failing and hearing, we will try again. You are still worthy. Imagine feeling heavy and hearing, you do not have to be productive to be valuable. That is not delusion. That is what healing from internal violence sounds like. And to get there, you do not need affirmations you do not believe. You need honest practice. Start small. Every time your critic rises, pause and ask, would I say this to someone I love? If not, reframe it. Gently. It will feel awkward at first. But over time, the voice softens. The shame lifts. And what replaces it is a new tone, a tone of partnership. You begin to walk with yourself, not against yourself. And that is where real change begins. Now take that voice, the one you are learning to soften, and bring it into every space of your life. Into your work, your relationships, your goals. Because how you treat yourself is how you will allow others to treat you. If your inner world is ruled by punishment, you will tolerate punishment from the outside. But if it is governed by truth and compassion, your standards will rise naturally. You will no longer beg for what you know you deserve. This is where it starts, with the quiet courage to come home to yourself. Not as a project to be fixed, but as a person to be honored. You do not need to scream your truth to make it real. You just need to stop whispering it in the dark. Because when you finally start living in alignment with who you are, the noise outside loses its grip. Opinions feel lighter. Expectations feel smaller. Approval feels unnecessary. Not because you do not care, but because you finally care more about your peace than their praise. This is where the second transformation begins. The first was internal learning to walk with yourself instead of against yourself. But now the world will start to test that inner peace. It will poke. It will prod. It will ask, do you really believe what you say? People will misunderstand your silence. They will question your boundaries. They will call your peace detachment. Let them. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your healing. You do not need to justify the practices that protect your nervous system. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be whole. And wholeness often looks like distance. Like less noise. Fewer conversations. Slower mornings. Clearer boundaries. It looks like saying no not because you are angry, but because you are finally choosing what aligns. The truth is, your life becomes simpler the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep the world comfortable. Simpler does not mean easier. It means quieter. More grounded. More rooted in truth. And that truth creates ripple effects. You start to see differently. You listen differently. You no longer chase what used to consume you. You no longer argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding. You stop negotiating your worth in spaces that require performance. Because once you have met your own soul in silence, there is no going back to superficial. You crave depth in conversations and relationships in the way you move through the world. And yes, that shift can feel lonely at first. But that is only because the old crowd was attached to the old you. The version who agreed more, questioned less, and tolerated too much. So now the path narrows. And as it does, it clarifies. Not everyone will come with you. That is not cruelty. That is evolution. You are no longer choosing based on history. You are choosing based on resonance. On alignment. On mutual growth. This is not ego. This is responsibility. You cannot build a life of clarity on a foundation of confusion. You cannot step into your next chapter while clinging to characters from an old one. So you bless them. You thank them. You let them go. And then you return to your own lane. Not because it is safe, but because it is yours. Marcus Aurelius said, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look there. That source is built in the quiet. In the choices you make when no one is watching. In how you speak to yourself when things fall apart. In what you choose when no one claps. So, let us bring it all back here. You are not here to fix everything at once. You are here to walk through life one moment at a time, choosing alignment over appearance, choosing presence over performance, choosing truth over temporary approval. And the moment you make peace with being misunderstood is the moment you reclaim your freedom. Because most of the time, what keeps you stuck is not the actual problem. It is your fear of how others will react when you do what you know is right for you. But the price of silence is resentment. The price of pretending is disconnection. The price of avoidance is a slow, subtle death of the self. You do not need permission to live a life that feels like yours. You just need to stop waiting for one. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to tell you, now is the time. You are the only one who knows what your soul is asking for. And the longer you wait, the heavier the ache becomes. Until one day you wake up and realize your life is not a reflection of your values, but of your fears. And that is the moment everything shifts. When fear no longer runs the show. When you start moving even when your voice shakes. When you speak up even if it ends the relationship. When you start again even if you feel behind. And what happens next is not a perfect life. It is an honest one. A life that feels like home. That does not mean there is no pain. It means the pain has a place to go. It means your emotions are no longer bottled. It means your values are lived, not just listed. It means your presence is felt not because you are loud, but because you are clear. That is the life most people are secretly craving. Not louder. Not faster. But truer. So start here. With this breath. With this choice. With one act today that says I will no longer delay my own return. I will no longer abandon myself to be chosen. I will no longer pretend just to be included. Because I am not here to be impressive. I am here to be aligned. You spend years trying to become someone the world will admire. You chase idols. You build images. You perfect your presence. And along the way, you forget something vital. Admiration is not the same as fulfillment. You can be respected and still feel empty. You can be applauded and still feel alone. Because no amount of external validation can fill the void left by a soul that knows it is living a performance. So eventually, something cracks. The applause fades. The platform shakes. The image starts to feel like a costume. And in the silence that follows, you are left with one haunting question: if no one was watching, would I still be living this way? That question is not meant to shame you. It is meant to set you free. Free from the pressure to impress. Free from the burden of being liked. Free from the addiction to approval that keeps so many people imprisoned by their own success. Because here is the truth: real success is not loud. It is not shiny. It does not need to be announced. It feels like peace. It sounds like silence. It looks like waking up without dread and going to sleep without regret. That is not the version of success you were sold. But it is the version your soul has been whispering about for years. To reach it, you have to get honest. Brutally honest. About what you are building. About why you are building it. About who you are becoming in the process. Because if you build a life you cannot breathe in, what good is it? If you reach the goal and lose yourself along the way, was it worth the cost? These are not abstract questions. They are the compass. They are how you find your way back to yourself when the world has pulled you too far in the wrong direction. You do not need to quit your job or abandon your dreams. You just need to stop outsourcing your definition of success. You need to ask, does this feel like mine? Not does it look good on a resume. Not does it impress my family. Not does it get more likes. But does it resonate? Does it reflect my values? Does it leave me feeling alive? Because success without soul is just survival with better branding. And you are made for more than survival. You are made for presence. For impact. For real joy. That kind of life cannot be measured in metrics. It is measured in moments. In the way you breathe when you are alone. In the way your body feels when you are not performing. In the way you show up for people when there is nothing to gain. You cannot fake that kind of life. You can only build it slowly, quietly, consistently. And it starts with one choice: to stop playing the game and start living your truth. To stop chasing someone else's version of enough and start creating your own definition of meaning. To stop proving and start becoming. That becoming is not glamorous. It will not always make sense to the people around you. It might look like less ambition, less hustle, less productivity. But what it really is more intention. more alignment, more depth. And what you lose in approval, you gain in clarity. What you give up in image, you reclaim in identity. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The real poverty is not a lack of money. It is the lack of peace. The kind of poverty that comes from always reaching and never arriving. Always striving and never feeling complete. That is the poverty that kills slowly, not in your bank account but in your spirit. So what if you stop striving for a minute? What if you pause long enough to feel what is actually true for you? What if you let go of the pressure to keep climbing and ask yourself, why am I climbing this at all? Not every mountain is worth summiting. Some are built by your ego. Some are built by fear. And the bravest thing you can do is climb down, walk away, and choose a new direction. That is not giving up. That is growing up. That is what real success looks like. Eventually you reach a point in life where you stop asking for more and start asking for real. You stop chasing bigger and start craving true. You no longer care about being seen, being followed, being validated. You care about being free. Free from the pressure to prove. Free from the weight of constant comparison. Free from the expectations that were never yours to carry. This is not giving up. This is growing up. This is spiritual maturity, the quiet realization that most of the world is chasing illusions. And the strength to say, I do not want what they are chasing. That is when the inner shift begins. Not because you read something new, but because you finally got tired of performing. You got tired of pretending to care about things that never filled you. You got tired of holding your breath just to fit in. So you exhale. And in that exhale, something sacred returns yourself. Not the curated version. Not the improved version. The honest one. The one that feels peace sitting alone. The one that no longer needs a witness to feel valuable. The one that remembers that success without serenity is just stress in better clothes. You start to look around and realize that much of what you once called ambition was really avoidance. Avoidance of silence. Avoidance of stillness. Avoidance of asking, who am I without the doing? So use it. You get quiet. And at first, it feels like dying. The identity starts to unravel. The masks fall. The roles dissolve. And what remains is not your resume. Not your audience. Not your possessions. What remains is your soul, raw, unfiltered, and asking, now what? Now you listen. For the first time in years, you stop trying to impress your way into love. You stop negotiating your needs. You stop performing your worth. And what replaces all of that is not grand. It is simple. It is presence. It is truth. It is enough. But here is the hard part: most people will not understand this version of you. They will call you cold when you become calm. They will call you distant when you stop explaining. They will call you arrogant when you stop apologizing for existing. Do not go back just to make them comfortable. Do not shrink just to be digestible. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be deeply aligned with yourself. That alignment is not for sale. It does not need applause. It is quiet. It is sacred. And it is yours. So let us be clear, peace is not passive. It is powerful. It takes strength to let go. It takes courage to walk away from the familiar. It takes discernment to know when to stay, when to speak, when to step back. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every conflict needs your truth. Some things are better left in silence. Not because you are afraid, but because you have nothing left to prove. That is real power. When you can walk away without needing to win. When you can bless people who misunderstood you. When you can release the outcome and still choose integrity. That is the kind of power that cannot be faked. And it is built in moments. The moment you choose rest instead of guilt. The moment you say no without a long explanation. The moment you stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what do I need? And self minus trust is the foundation of everything. You cannot love yourself and lie to yourself at the same time. You cannot be at peace and live in pretense. You must choose. Choose honesty even when it is inconvenient. Choose clarity even when it costs connection. Choose yourself even when it means being alone for a while. And here is the paradox: the more you choose yourself, the less alone you feel. Because the loneliness was never about people. It was about abandonment, the kind you did to yourself when you ignored your own voice. When you said yes, while your body screamed no. When you tolerated things your soul was begging you to release. That is what creates distance inside. That is what keeps you fractured. But every time you come back to your truth, even if it is hard, you close that distance. You become whole. Not perfect. Whole. And wholeness is what most people are chasing in all the wrong places. They think it comes from being chosen. From being seen. From being praised. But it comes from being honest. From being consistent. From being aligned. You do not need everyone to get it. You just need to get it yourself. And then live it quietly, steadily, relentlessly. Because at the end of your life, you will not remember how many followers you had. You will remember how it felt to come home to yourself. Again and again. No matter who left. No matter what failed. No matter how hard it got. That is the memory that will matter. That you stayed true. That you walked with grace. That you did not betray yourself to be loved. That is your legacy. Not the noise you made, but the presence you carried. Not the image you built, but the truth you lived. And that truth, if honored daily, is what fixes more than 93% of your problems. It fixes the root. The fracture. The fear. It brings you back to what matters. And from that place, everything else becomes simple. One day you will wake up and realize that most of what you chased never really mattered. The achievements. The admiration. The aesthetic. You will look around and see that the trophies collected dust, the applause faded, and the people you once tried to impress moved on to something else. And in that moment of stillness, one question will emerge from the silence: if there is nothing left to prove, what will you live for? This is the question that marks the beginning of wisdom. Because so much of life is performance. Not intentionally. Not maliciously. But subconsciously acting the way we are expected to. Saying what is acceptable, achieving what is celebrated. All to feel like we matter. But the harsh truth is this: if your worth is built on things outside of you, it will always be unstable. Always at risk of collapse. Always needing more. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." And this poverty is not material, it is spiritual. A restlessness that gnaws at the edges of your soul. A feeling that no matter what you do, it is never enough. Because enough is a moving target when you are chasing it from the outside. So what if, just for today, you stopped chasing? What if you stopped asking, "How do I look?" and instead asked, "How do I feel in this moment?" This is the beginning of wholeness. When you are no longer building a life that looks good, but one that feels true. When you no longer ask what others want from you, but what your soul has been whispering all along. And when you live like that, when you move from essence instead of ego, something beautiful happens. You stop comparing. You stop competing. You start creating not for praise, but for expression. You start speaking, not to impress, but to connect. You start choosing, not out of fear, but from alignment. Let us now speak about legacy, not the kind etched in marble, but the kind etched into people's hearts. Because another truth you learn too late is this: your greatest impact will not be what you achieve, but how you made others feel. Not the numbers on your resume, but the peace in your presence. Not the size of your audience, but the depth of your kindness. You will not be remembered for how busy you were. You will be remembered for whether people felt safe in your presence. Whether you really listened. Whether your words softened their pain or deepened their shame. Whether your silence was cold or compassionate. That is your legacy. And you build it every day with your tone, your choices, your presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." There is your invitation. You do not need more theory. You need embodiment. You need to live the values you admire, not when it is easy, but especially when it is hard. Let us now address the weight you carry, the guilt, the shame, the regret. You may believe you are too far gone, that your past disqualifies you from peace. But here is the truth: your mistakes do not define you. They refine you. If you let them. Guilt is useful only when it leads to change. Beyond that, it becomes punishment. You are allowed to evolve beyond your worst day. You are allowed to stop replaying the past and begin writing something new. Redemption is not reserved for the perfect. It is available to the willing. All you must do is stop running from your past and begin walking toward your future with honesty, with humility, and with hope. There is no virtue in punishing yourself forever. There is virtue in becoming someone your past self would be proud to meet. And what a fear! It never truly leaves. But here is the truth: courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act anyway. To write the words. To say the truth. To leave the job. To begin again. To love after heartbreak. To hope after disappointment. Epictetus said, "Difficulties are things that show a person what they are. If you feel afraid, good. It means you are standing at the edge of something meaningful. Do not back away. Lean in. Your future is on the other side of that edge." Another harsh truth: your dreams are your responsibility. Not your partner's. Not your parents'. Not the algorithms'. Yours. If you do not fight for them, no one else will. If you keep waiting for the world to give you permission, you will spend your life asking. Create anyway. Speak anyway. Build anyway. Even if no one claps. Especially if no one claps. That is how you honor your calling, not by waiting for validation, but by walking with conviction. And finally, this truth: life is not supposed to be perfect. It is supposed to be real. Full of contradictions. Joy and grief. Expansion and loss. Mess and beauty. You are never meant to have it all figured out. You are meant to live it. To feel it. To grow through it. Stop looking for the flawless life. It does not exist. What does exist is a meaningful one. A life of presence, truth, courage, and connection. A life that reflects who you are, not what others expect. A life you do not have to escape from. A life that, when it is your time to leave it, You will know with quiet certainty that you lived it fully. This is your invitation. And this is your time. Live like you are already enough. Love like you have nothing to prove. And leave a legacy not of noise, but of depth. If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Write one thing down that you'll start doing this week. 2025 doesn't magically change anything you do. And your future begins the moment you decide to move, even just a little.